move that there a little bit.
Okay, I think we are now live. So we'll let you know what we're doing today, because this is the first time we've gone live through this platform for a little while. And we've got a plan for this, really. So we're getting more and more questions coming through from students who are on our courses, and we want to help you with that. Equally, we want to help everyone with that, rather than reply to people individually with responses to their questions. So what we do is we're gathering in these questions as they come through, and then we'll pick out some of them and tackle them through these sessions here. So we've got a handful of questions to look at today that have come through mostly from our CII Facebook group, and a couple of them that have come into our inbox as well. So good morning. See a couple of you here with us now. If you want to have your question answered the next time we do this, then do just engage with us on the Facebook page, and we'll be sharing these videos directly onto there, and then we'll be forwarding them onto our Instagram as well. And it's on our YouTube too, so they'll be available for you to find in numerous places. So good morning, Grace.
Morning, Sam.
So we're going to have a look at, we're going to start off with quite a long section. So someone sent me a scenario, which I'm going to have to share the screen for, because we will lose track if we just read it out loud. So someone sent a scenario from the book for MO5, which is the law module. So this is the scenario we're going to have a look at here, and they've sent a couple of specific questions. So should we just have a read through the scenario first, Grace, if you want to do that, and then I'll read the questions to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is in, as Sam mentioned, MO5. So I'm just looking, it's a little bit small on my screen, but an insurance firm advertises its products on television. In its advertisement, the firm states that there is a discount for travel insurance for those over 65 years of age for 1 month only. A potential customer has been refused the discount, and he makes a complaint. He claims that because he responded to the advertisement, there is a contract of law. He is threatening to take the firm to court. Explain the justification, whether you think the potential customer is correct, and what he says. Okay, so what are the questions to do with that, Sam?
So is the insurer legally capable of rejecting the customer who made the complaint?
Okay, so one thing I should say about law, I mean, as you can see in that scenario, it goes in to talk about how you would actually go about answering this. So you would have an introduction, you'd talk about the relevant areas of law, apply it, and then come to some kind of conclusion. And that's the deal with MO5. And I think it's not as black and white as you would think in terms of what they want to draw out of you in a discussion. So the first things that come to my mind, and I would probably, with this scenario, I'd probably break it down. And I go, right, okay, a few clues in here. Those people who are over 65 of age have only got 1 month to get in contact with the company. So we've got some kind of offer and acceptance scenario in there as well. But the fact that it's an advertisement could mean, and they do talk about this in chapter 3, that it is actually, in fact, not a true offer of a contract. It is what we call an invitation to treat. So an invitation to treat, the case law for that particular thing is Pharmaceutical Society of Great Britain and Boots Cash Chemists. So that was in the 1950s, and it's Boots, the shop, as we have it today. They talked a little bit about things being on the shelf, on offers. They are invitations to treat. So you would take something down from the shop shelf, you would take it to the counter, and that is your offer to buy it for the person behind the counter to actually accept, and therefore you've got a contract of sale. So the same thing is here. Because the insurance company have put this advert out to everybody, it's more likely to get, people coming to talk about it, in which case you coming to them is the offer, and then the insurance company are there to either accept or reject your offer. So that could be one of the parts of the discussion. If it is found to be a true offer, and that's for you to kind of, as I said, weigh up in your discussion, there's no real correct answer, because, these things go through courts of law, long, extensive processes to find out these things. So essentially, if it is found to be a true offer, you could be talking about, why has he been rejected? Was it after the month? Or was it because he wasn't the correct age? Or was there something else in the travel insurance that he didn't quite meet, so therefore there's not a valid contract? So they want you to talk about all of these things and then come to a conclusion of what you think is probably the most viable option. So unfortunately for that particular question, there's no clear-cut answer, but essentially it's down to whether you can discuss both sides.
Yeah. and I think that's quite typical of law questions, because it's more about grey areas for law. There's always, a case where this happened, and then there's another case where, but in this scenario, this happened, and we have polar opposites. So you'll tend to find with the questions that you get, they want to see your knowledge and understanding of both sides, and then you weighing up that argument. So as long as you are understanding the differences between the argument and how they relate to that scenario, then that's really what they're looking for.
Yeah, perfect.
Brilliant. Okay, so a couple of other questions that came through. One of them came through from Tom, who I think has actually passed his exam in the last couple of days. So we might be a little late. I'm sorry, Tom, if that's the case. But it was the question in relation to layering in LM3.
Yeah. Okay, so in this particular scenario, I think Tom was requesting the difference between what we call costs inclusive and costs in addition, and how this is affected by excess layers. So let's just take a normal example, and it's actually one that I saw as a claim many, many years ago. There was an IT company who had a particular copyright claim made against them, and it went through a really big litigation process. They only had a limit of £1 million sterling. But they had a cost inclusive limit, which actually meant that they ran up lots and lots of defense costs, which eroded that limit. And by the time they actually got to paying the claim, unfortunately, there was no limit left. And so that's the kind of the distinction that we're thinking about here. We're thinking about cost inclusive, whereby legal costs, defense costs, whatever it might be, start to erode that limit. So not only is that limit there for damages, it's also there for defense costs. So it actually makes the limit less and less the more or the longer that the legal process goes on. If you've got costs in addition, you've got your overall limits of £1 million, say, for example, and then any costs, defense costs or anything like that that's related, insurers will actually pay in addition to your limit for your normal kind of liability limit. So the way that the question that Tom was asking was, how does this work in excess layers? Well, if you've got for example, your primary limit, if that is costs inclusive, then a lot of the defense costs are going to erode before you've even got to the actual settlement, which means that the settlement is likely to tip over into the following layers. If, however, they're cost in addition, it means that even if the loss gets so big that it actually goes through the tower and through the layers, it's actually, you're stuck with the primary insurer paying all of those costs. And sometimes it's just not evenly or proportionally distributed between the layers, in sense that the costs are in addition, so they have to be paid by somebody else. So it's very difficult to actually split them in an excess layer format.
Yeah. Okay. And one final question which came through on Facebook today, and we do actually have a theme of questions I want to pick up on as well. One final question was around breach of warranty, and we did answer this one on the Facebook group. But this question comes up a lot because there are essentially two sides to the coin when we look at this particular topic. Do you want to talk about that, Grace?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was actually highlighting breach of warranty. And this question, as I said, it's more of a multiple choice side of things. So we've got 4 answers. I'm just going to read out the question. An insured property suffers extensive water damage. A claims handler notes that the insured has not complied with the minimum security requirement. What action would be taken? Now, the question was why a particular answer was what it was. The answer to this is that the claim would be paid and the policy would remain in force. And that is essentially because the water damage probably has nothing to do with the fact that there's a minimum security requirement that has not been met. So with warranties, remember, as per the Insurance Act 2015, any time that there has been a breach of warranty, the cover is suspended, but only for things in connection to that breach. So if there had been extensive water damage and, for example, the drains had been blocked or something like that, and there's a reason why there's been damage and there's been flooding, that is connected, so therefore the claim probably wouldn't be payable. But the fact that it's to do with a security requirement in relation to theft doesn't quite marry up unless the thief broke in and flooded the water in the actual premises. So the fact that they are unconnected means that the suspension doesn't actually affect that claim, and therefore the claim can still be essentially paid and the policy can remain in force.
Okay. Now, the last thing we want to cover off today is the question of syllabus updates, because it's near the end of the year. Most of the books renew in January. They don't all, but a lot of them do. So we're starting to get lots of questions of people saying, is my book going to expire? What do I need to be aware of if my book is from this year and I sit the exam on the 3rd of January? So I think really we want to just kind of give a little bit of reassurance here, as well as a bit more understanding, so you can sort of see how this works from the CII's perspective. So if I'll introduce this, Grace, and then you can jump in and fill in the gaps. But
Sure.
Generally speaking, the CII will have a textbook for a module. And that textbook will cover very sort of specific learning objectives that are consistent. Those learning objectives tend to be the same throughout year on year. Very occasionally, there's a shake-up in that. We don't see that very often at all. Generally speaking, when we look at updates, it's for anything that's changed from the book that's now out of date for the next year. So it's not a new book. It's not, well, it might be a new printing of the book, but it's not like a book started from scratch. It is essentially going through and reviewing if anything needs to be updated. And those might be things such as the FOS. We see them quite often changing their payouts. So there might be a change to a number within the book, or a link that's now outdated for further reading. So very specific things that mean that the book from last year needs a bit of updating for next year. And what that tends to mean is, as you go to sit your exam for the following year, the book you had last year will absolutely be able to help you with that. We just want to be able to be aware of those syllabus updates and where to find them. So do you want to jump in there, Grace?
Yeah, so on the actual pages, so within the CII website, you go to learning, qualifications, whatever you're doing, certificate, diploma, advanced, and they will have their own set page. Now, on the right-hand side, there's useful links and downloads. And if you just go down maybe 3 or 4, you'll see 2021 edition changes. And on those edition changes, it's a PDF, talks you through exactly chapter by chapter what's exactly changed. So they might say section A2 has changed, or section A5A, or whatever else it might be. And you might be able to narrow it down what the actual updates are. If you do have a company that is repurchasing the book, then you can kind of start to suss out where those all are. If you've read it already, for example, and you want to just update your knowledge. But otherwise, you'll start to see that they are relatively minimal in terms of it's not necessarily going to be a pass or fail. But to be honest, the CII also issue updates generally throughout the year as well. So you should always check the page before you do your exam, just to make sure that there's nothing glaringly obvious that they need to make you aware of.
Yeah, so hopefully that's reassuring. I think quite often when people just see an update or a new textbook, you kind of think, oh no, everything's going to be different compared to what I learned. But we are really looking at very specific and minimal pieces. So on our webinar for preparing for your multiple choice exam, I actually do share with you where that is on the CII page. So if you go onto YouTube and check out that webinar, you'll get some sort of step-by-step guidance on how you can check that for each module as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it for today. So we'll be doing these. I think we're probably going to aim to do these every couple of weeks. Just depends on how many questions are coming in for us with them. So if you have questions, like I said, pop them on the Facebook group. If you're not following us on Facebook and you're watching this on YouTube or Instagram, then it's the CII study group, and then you can find us in there, and we will be able to include them in these sessions. As long as they are not to do with the coursework, actually, I must caveat that.
Yes.
We will not help you with any coursework questions. We can answer questions around the book, around the syllabus, but please do not send us any coursework questions. We're not even allowed to look at them. So to make sure your questions do not bridge into that topic. Excellent. All right. Well, have a good morning, everyone. And hopefully make the most out of our Black Friday sale. Should highlight that, actually. It's reading along the bottom there. So up until Monday, we've got 25% off all of our online courses for certificate and diploma, and we've got 50% off our advanced diploma units as well. So go in over the weekend and make the most out of that sale. We've had some people buying their courses all for next year, actually. So they planned out the modules they're going to do, because you will have access for a year. So this is only once a year that we do this kind of offer. So if you want to go in and plan for 2022, this is a very sensible way to do that.
Also, if any of you are doing LM3, I'm doing a workshop today at 1 p.m.
Excellent. All right. Okay. See you later on.
See ya.